The Second Ark. Hello, everybody. I'm Parker Pruitt, and thank you for joining me on the Inseparable Podcast. Well, today I want to talk about Noah's Ark. We often hear this story told in church, especially when we're younger, because it's kind of a cool story. Um, but in the story of Noah's Ark, if you haven't heard the story, God commands Noah to build this giant ship, gives him the dimensions and everything like that, and tells him to build this wooden ark because he's going to send rain and flood the earth, or at least portion of the earth, and he's going to cleanse the earth. And he wants him, his family, and two of each kind of animal to enter the earth to start new and to revitalize humankind or civilization, whatever you want to call it. So Noah obeys the instructions, builds this ark, and you got to think back in his day, back in Noah's day, thousands of years ago. According to the Bible, the earth had not seen rain up until that point. The earth was only watered, if you will, by dew. It's dew, dew. You see dew on the grass. That's how the earth was. That's how the earth received moisture and water. It wasn't through rain, but it was through dew throughout the night. So this whole thought of the earth being flooded, or he said parts of the earth at least being flooded, um, was crazy in his day. That's why everybody laughed at Noah. They thought he was crazy for building this ark with his family. And anyway, so you got this story of the flood, right? The floods come, the winds blow, the rains flood the earth, and there Noah is with all these animals and his family and some relatives, and they all get in this boat, and the earth is flooded for 150 days, and then the water subside, and then he's able to get off and um, basically restart humankind, right? Human civilization begins again. So while there's probably a lot more metaphor with that story than there is literal truth to that, which there is, kind of like with the whole Bible, a lot of the Bible. Some of it's literal, obviously. The death and resurrection is very literal, I believe. But anyway, like stories like this, um, I kind of just take, metaphorically in some ways. Some ways is probably, literal, but in others, probably more metaphorical. But I kind of keep a running note tab on my phone of just things I want to talk about, things I come across in scripture, and I've got a whole list of things that I want to cover on this podcast eventually. I just don't ever have the time to do it like I want to. It's usually, once or twice a week, but I want to do it every single day. But obviously with working a full-time job, having a child and one on the way, full-time job at home too, it's easier said than done. But anyway, I've written this story down and this analogy down I found in scripture months and months ago. But I just kind of was going through my notes today, and was thinking about something to talk about, and this kind of caught my eye for whatever reason. Hopefully, it's for you. So stay tuned. It's going to be very interesting. Hopefully, you find it interesting. I've kind of discovered, it's probably nothing new, but at least it's new to me and hopefully new to you. Kind of an analogy or a parallel with Jesus Christ and how Jesus Christ relates to this ark story, right? This whole boat story, building a boat, and the side of the boat opening up for all the animals and the human beings that God allowed on the boat to get in there and to be saved. So, when it says the winds blew and the rains came, the ark saved the people, right? It saved the people. So the ark represents salvation, right? Salvation from destruction around, right? Destruction on the earth. Um, when we experience the storms of life, the winds, the rains, the flood, right? We have an ark, aka Jesus Christ, that saves us from that chaos, from that disorder. No matter what's going on around us, we can be still and know that Jesus Christ is Lord over all in here, right? In our hearts. Um, and the storms of life doesn't have to be literal, or it can be. Think of what's going on in California right now, with the fires. That's quite a storm. That's quite a natural disaster, or man-made disaster in that case. But it's such a tragedy what's going on, and but that's real loss. Real people are experiencing real loss, and it could be the death of a loved one. It could be, the loss of a job that this flood represents, this storm in life represents. It could be the loss of a friendship or a relationship. You might be really close to someone, for years and years, and then grow apart, and then you start to grieve that loss or what was, right? Um, could be money trouble, financial issues. That's obviously present day, with the way the economy is, and you gotta have two jobs just to survive. It seems like, that feels stressful, right? That seems like a storm in life. Um, it could be health issues and health troubles. It could be just anything you're dealing with, whatever it is. But Christ is that ark in the new covenant, in this new covenant we have with God. Christ is there to rescue us. He opens himself up and allows us to come into his presence, right? He's drawing us into his presence. And whether Christ is there or not, which he always is objectively, you know, it's subjective and dependent on, if we experience that peace or not, right? No matter what we're going through, we can have that supernatural peace that surpasses all understanding if we just believe in him, right? And believe what he said is true, right? So that is why Jesus can be compared to the ark, which took place thousands of years before his lifetime, right? So the side of the ark, if you read Genesis, the story is in Genesis chapter 6 and chapter 7. Uh, it starts in like verse 22. But the side of the ark, says the side of the ark, I think that's a very important detail. The side of the ark opened and received the people and all the animals. And in the New Testament, when at the death of Jesus Christ, when he's on the cross, interestingly, the Roman soldier, unbeknownst to him, pierces the side of Jesus. And what happens? Blood pours out, right? Blood pours out and hits the ground, and water as well. And there's metaphors with that, and there's really metaphors with a lot, not metaphors, but connections and parallels with the Old Testament, fulfilling prophecy and fulfilling stories that happen in the Old Testament, like Noah's Ark. You know, now Jesus' side, just like the ark in the Old Testament in the Noah's flood story, Jesus' side opens up for all of creation to enter, male and female, both male and female, to enter and into salvation, right? Into Jesus Christ. So I want to read a few verses in Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. It says, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine," this is Jesus speaking, "and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." So it's very wise of us to follow things like the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5. It's wise of us to build our lives on the rock, which is Jesus Christ, because he is that firm foundation. He's not uh, the sand, right? He's not this unstable foundation that we can build our life on, build our house on, right? So when the storms come, when those uh, chaos and strife comes, when the bad times come, which they will, right? Jesus promises, in this life you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So he's already paved the way. He's already overcome the world. He's our way to peace. He's our ark to peace. He's our way to peace. He's our safety net, right? He's our salvation. So in the Bible, when you read the Bible, it's kind of like watching a movie, right? The Old Testament is like the prequel, the first part, right? And then the second part comes out, the sequel comes out, and it all starts making sense. You start putting the puzzle pieces together. Jesus fulfills the law and the prophets. Jesus didn't come to, um, abandon them, do away with them. He come to fulfill them. He come to fulfill the old covenant. So now this new covenant, which Jesus and the Lord created with mankind, it completes the story, right? So all these stories in the Old Testament, they might seem a little confusing, but sometimes they're just um, stories to be fulfilled in the New Testament. Kind of build the case that the Bible is true, right? Or um, that God is Lord over all, right? He knows everything. So he creates these stories to, like, man, only God can think of something like this to make a parallel from, like the side of the ark opening up, just as the side of Jesus Christ opened up, to pour out salvation over all mankind. So it's kind of funny how that works. Just there's so many stories in the Old Testament, so many parallels that we haven't even begun to think about or consider. That's why it's important to study, to read the Bible and study the Bible, because in it you're gonna find new things every single time you do it. It's like digging for treasure. Like, there's treasures in there, and you could be a student for years and years and read something for the first time. Because I don't know. I guess the Lord kind of just blinds us to it until we're ready for it, right? So, um, you know, the Old Testament has been fulfilled. The law and the prophets, um, both major and minor, the Psalms, everything has been fulfilled. So it's not bad to read the Old Testament. Just know that Jesus completed it. So um, there's a lot of connections, but at the end of the day, the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, everything points to Jesus. If you haven't read Jesus into the Old Testament, you're not reading it right yet. So read it with the lens, or through the lens, of Jesus Christ. Know that what Jesus Christ did fulfilled whatever you're reading, um, whether that be through Noah's Ark, the story of Adam and Eve, uh, David and Goliath. There's all these stories that you can read about, but there's Jesus. Jesus can be found in each one of them. You just got to look. You just got to find them, and that's what I think is interesting. It's kind of like a mission, right? Just find Jesus in this story, and you'll find him. You'll find him in every single story. We understand that it was about Jesus all along. We didn't always know that, but now we do. So it's awesome to figure out. It's kind of like a puzzle. It's kind of like a puzzle to solve. Um, so let's walk in that salvation. Let's walk in the salvation of the Lord that He offers us freely, right? And grants us this salvation. That all we have to do is believe it, right? It's objectively true for everybody, but is it subjectively true for you? That's the question. So you have to take that first step, right? He first loved us, but we have to take that step and receive it, right? In order for us to really enjoy it here on the earth. So let's not wait for the afterlife to enjoy heaven. Let's enjoy it right here, right now. Live life more abundantly. So that is why Jesus is the second ark. He's known as the second Adam, but I'm coming up with a new one. He's the second ark as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this message. Thank you all for listening. God bless you.